So here we go. All right, so I'm going to cover what's required, and then we're going to mix in a bit of a role play, and Jay was kind enough to volunteer for that. And then we're going to finish with what I am going to require of you in the role play in order for me to pass you to receive company appointments. All right? So Scott, you already have been cleared for him. You know how this works. We're just updating the video for V4. So today we're doing VIP buyer, and really it's going to come down to these three things. All right? You're going to be tested on how well you prepare for a meeting. You're going to be tested on how you present in the meeting, and then I'm going to cover the details that I look for to make sure that you're covering the right things in the meeting. And remember, everything that's in this presentation is designed to help you succeed, all right? Your mission when you meet with a new customer, a new buyer, you have two goals. Number one, get them to sign an agency agreement to work with you exclusively. And number two, book an appointment for your first showing appointment. That's it. If you don't get both of those, I want you to consider yourself having failed, right? That means that you're going to have to follow up, you're going to have another meeting. Your mission should be to capture both of those things in that first meeting. That's a win, all right? And what you'll learn from the other brokers in our firm that do this is they win just about 100% of the time now because they've done it enough. And that's all it is. It just takes practice, right? You have to practice. You have to envision how you're going to do this in a way that helps you win and then deliver on it, all right? So let's talk about the preparation, all right? First things first, you got a folder, right? You guys all know that CAT has 3 piles of folders up by the front door: buyers, sellers, and pre-closing orientation meeting. This is a buyer folder. Buyers are blue. They have a blue sticker. So the contents of the folder are the same every time, all right? When you get the folder, it's going to be stacked in this order. All right? What am I on? The right side, all right? The right side has the first page is a $10,000 discount guarantee. Behind that is the requirements and nice to haves, a map, a copy of our VIP buyer system, a purchase and sale agreement with various addenda, and if it's a company booked appointment, you will actually have a lender flyer in the very back for one of our preferred lenders, all right? On the left side of the folder, every time, cancellation agreement, VIP buyer addendum, buyer agency agreement, and then a series of resources that we're going to give to the customer, and you're going to learn what those are when I go through them in the interest of time, all right? It's stacked like this the same way every time, all right? So when I say prepare the folder, all right, here's what I mean. I don't mean a big fat pause.
Hey, Ed, I was going to say that the setting the appointment after the VIP is very important.
Yeah, and we're actually recording this, Jason, so if you don't mind holding comments, but definitely if you have questions, raise questions, all right?
Okay, I'm done. Okay, I'm good.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you reinforcing my earlier point, though. All right, so sort your folder in the right order means this. Before I ever leave the office, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take the $10,000 discount guarantee. I'm going to stuff it in my briefcase. I don't intend to need it. This sheet of paper is an objection handler that you only use if you get the objection. That objection tends to sound like this. Gosh, Janice, if I don't use you and I go straight to the listing broker, I'll save 3%. We all know that's BS, right? We all know the listing broker is now going to get paid double and you don't save anything. So this is a way for you to handle that objection. Hey, you know what? What if I guarantee that I'm going to save you X thousands of dollars, and if I don't, I'll give you a credit out of my commissions? That's what this is for. We'll cover that at a later time. But you take it out of the folder because you don't want to have it in there and have to say, oh, this doesn't matter, right? Because that's suspicious. Your prospect is going to go, what's he not showing me, right? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 3 things that are the most important: cancellation guarantee, VIP buyer addendum, and the buyer agency agreement, right? Those 3 things. And I'm going to take them out of the folder and put them on the back of the folder face out. So now the folder looks like this. I do it that way because when I pull the folder out of my briefcase and I put it on the table or the desk or where I meet him at Starbucks or whatever, and then I go to show them what's in the folder, these things are face down, right? Because I want to roll these out when I want to roll them out. I don't want them going, ooh, what's that? Is he going to ask me to sign something, right? That's what they do. So I set myself up to succeed. That means here in Bellevue, I do this, put it in my briefcase so that when I get to my appointment in Newcastle or wherever, I'm in a position to win. Make sense? Right? So now my folder is all right and the way I want it. Next thing I'm going to do is make sure I have the presentation on my computer. Right? If you don't have this loaded on your laptop, it's not hard to do. I'm going to show you how to do it. I want you to go into V4. Right? You just log into V4, you go to Agent Resources, you go into the Foundation for Success section of training, switch to the resource list because it defaults to the videos, and just scroll down to the bottom and download the VIP Buyer Presentation. Make sure you get the HTA version because the Miller Lane one's still in here, right? So I download the HTA version of the VIP Buyer. It's a PDF file, right? And I close my laptop or do whatever you need to do to make your computer go to sleep, all right? Some computers, in Windows at least, you can right-click and make it go to sleep. If you have your computer configured that way, you can just close the lid, it'll go to sleep. Just make sure that you know how to wake it up. Because if you're doing it for the first time, sometimes it won't behave the way you think it should, right? She is smiling because he's a tech guy and he knows that problem, all right? So I close my laptop, it goes to sleep, and now I'm going to read the notes in V4. Because remember, if this is an appointment that's been booked for you, we've already talked to the prospect. We've already had a conversation, we've asked qualifying questions, and we've gotten information that would benefit you to know. You don't want to get there and start asking questions that they've already answered. You want to say, oh, I see that you've been pre-approved with Wells Fargo or whatever, right? So read the notes in V4, then go to your appointment. Pretty straightforward, right? If this is a company-generated appointment, we expect you to follow these steps. If it's your own referral or a lead you generated, you should still follow these steps. I use this exact sequence even if I'm presenting to an aunt or an uncle, a relative, because they deserve my very best. And what I found over the years is I do a great job for leads, which are strangers, and for my friends and referrals, I shortchange them. Because there's that familiarity, and you just feel like, oh, I don't have to go through all that, stuff. Well, these are all benefits to the customer. Why would you shortchange them, right? So, when I get there, I am going to follow this exact sequence, all right? I am going to build rapport. Right? In fact, in building rapport, that portion of the meeting is 80% of the total time spent. 80%, all right? And I used the requirements and nice to have sheet to do that, to build that rapport. It's conversational. We're going to talk a lot about you because you are your favorite topic, right? You being the prospect. We're going to talk about them, right? Then I'm going to go to the slides. From the slides, I'm going to go to the folder. And from the folder, we're going to go to those 3 agreements at the end, right? And before I get out of here, I'm booking the next showing appointment. If you don't go in that order, you will not pass and receive company appointments. Sorry. If you go in this order, they will sign almost 100% of the time because you will wow them with benefits. Make sense? Build rapport, show slides, review the folder, review the agreements, book the showing appointment. All right?
That's the amen head on that one.
Thank you, Jason.
Booking the appointment.
Yeah. I'm going to mute you, okay, buddy? You muted yourself. Thank you. All right. Let's role play, shall we? So remember, I stacked the folder. I left the office with my laptop asleep, right? And I headed to the appointment and I'm meeting Jay at a Starbucks or wherever, right? We actually have a sequence of preferential places that we will follow when we're booking appointments for you. Number 1 place we'll do it is right here. It's a controlled environment. There are no interruptions or disturbing noises, that kind of stuff. And you're in the best position to succeed, which means get it signed, get a showing appointment booked. Next most likely place, Starbucks. Because even though it's noisy, it's white noise, right? It's ambient noise. And it's still fairly easy to contain and control someone's attention in that environment. The 3rd place is their house. That's where they're the most comfortable. If they have children, their children's toys are there, that sort of thing, right? The 4th and last or worst place is the house that they're interested in, right? Because a lot of these appointments and leads come out of sign calls. Hey, I saw your listing on 1234 Main Street. I'd like to go see it. We'll book an appointment. We'll try and get them to come here, but we may end up booking it for you at the house. Do your best if it's at the house. That's all I can say. The reason we prefer not to do that is another showing can come through. It could be an occupied house and the homeowner could come back early. There's a more pronounced risk of interruptions, all right? So we get to Starbucks. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Ed, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm excited to talk to you and kind of show you a little bit about our system. But let me start by getting a better understanding of what it is you're looking for. I pull out the requirements and nice to have. I close the folder and I pull out the map. The map I'm only going to need if she doesn't know the area, which happens, right? Especially with Chinese buyers. They're like, where should I want to live, right? I'm going to shortchange the rapport building in this recording. Let me just reiterate that this should be 80% of the time spent. And when we're done, I'm going to fill this thing up with notes. And oftentimes when I'm doing it, I got notes on the back too, because I have a very inquisitive nature, and you should too. You want to develop that. When she says, I'd like a house with a yard. Oh, do you have a dog? Really, what breed? I love dogs. What's his name? How old is he? How long you had him? Right? I asked, you tell me you have kids, man, by the time we're done, I know their names, how old they are, what school they go to, where they want to go to college. I'm inquisitive, and you should be too, because those are all Jay's favorite things to talk about, right? She loves her dog. She loves her kids. I'm also going to find out how many beds, baths, square feet, school districts. All of these questions at the top matter because they're going to help me search for houses, right? But what also matters is that by the time we're done, she thinks I'm awesome, and she will because I asked so many questions about her, all right? This also represents the first opportunity I have to sell my lender. Now, whether you pursue 4% VIP fees or not, you want your preferred lender to do every single loan for your clients because they close on time, they close as predicted as far as terms go, and when you need a rush or a favor, your preferred lender is going to be able to give it to you, not some stranger, okay? So here's how that goes, because the one thing I got to give you as a cautionary tale is there's 3 places where I can ask on behalf of my lender, but in the first time I ask, I need to listen very carefully for how loyal she is to her current lender, if she has one, right? If we book the appointment for you, it'll be in the notes, pre-approved with Wells Fargo or whomever, right? Because we won't book the appointment without asking about the status of the financing. And if they have no progress towards getting pre-approved, we put them in touch straight away with the preferred lender, all right? So when I ask that question, there's a section on here that says ideal payment range. And I'll just say, so Jay, have you thought about kind of where you want to end up price-wise or payment-wise? Have you been pre-approved? Or I saw in the notes that you are pre-approved. I would say, what are you pre-approved to, right? And she's going to give me some sort of response. And I need to listen carefully, because if she says, oh yeah, I'm pre-approved with Wells Fargo, it's actually my brother-in-law, he's a loan officer, and blah, blah, blah. Well, now I know I better be very cautious about pushing my lender on her, right? Because she'll fire me before she fires her brother-in-law, plain and simple, right? But I can, and I'll show you how I do it in later in the presentation, I can still kind of tease it out a little bit and get her to at least talk to my lender without betraying her brother-in-law. And you watch how I do that, all right? So we go through this, we build rapport. By the end of it, I'm able to say, gosh, this has been really helpful, Jay. I now can see through your eyes what it is you're looking for, and that'll help me do a much better job for you. Everything is positioned as you're helping me do a better job for you, all right? One line that's really powerful when filling out this kind of the bottom box is, okay, now that I understand the bedrooms and the bathrooms and the square footage, that all makes sense. But what if I gave you like a magic paintbrush and you could paint into this house any feature you want? What would you want? And let them dream a little bit, right? That helps them feel more excited about the process. The other thing you want to clarify, and the reason why this says requirements and nice to haves, is that some things are deal breakers. I have to have 3 bedrooms. Other things are not. I'd like to have a fence, but if there's not one there, we could always put one in, right? But it would be nice to have a fence already. Or nice to have a 3-car garage, but we could get away with a 2 if our budget won't allow us to pay for a 3rd-car garage, or something like that, right? I'll also say that, you know, the cool thing about this, Jay, is sometimes stuff that starts as a requirement will become more of a nice to have, and some things that are a nice to have will become more of a requirement, and that's okay. This sheet is sort of dynamic. It's going to evolve as you look at more houses, right? What did I do there? Gave her the latitude to change her mind later, demonstrated character and competence, right? She now knows that I have a lot of experience, and she's even more engaged that I'm the right guy for the job. Make sense? All right. Now that I have that ability to see these homes through your eyes, what I'd like to do is show you my VIP buyer system. All right. And I open my laptop because remember it's asleep. Right. Now this is a PDF file. In a PDF file, Control L will launch the full screen mode. Why is that important? Well, if your client or your prospect doesn't know a lot about computers, what did I just do in about 4/10 of a second by hitting Control L?
Show you your expertise in technology.
Exactly, right? And that impression that I just made actually elevates her impression of me in general and increases my credibility with all the stuff I'm about to say.
So that becomes
Full slide or full screen mode. Yeah, it's different on Mac though, so you have to figure that out. But just figure out what the keyboard shortcut is to move into full screen mode. In a PC environment, it's Control L for a PDF. And I just impressed her without saying anything. She's not even going to say anything in response, but she's just going to go, oh, I didn't know I could do that. That's kind of cool, right? So, Jay, let me ask you, are you familiar with agency in a real estate kind of context?
I'm kind of learning a little bit about it.
All right, cool. Well, you might pass this in flying colors, but let me just show you kind of what it's all about. There's actually, that my little reminder has screwed me up, right? There's actually two types of agency. Now, you're probably familiar with, you've heard the term listing agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you drive around town and you see for sale signs in lawns, I want you to think of that for sale sign as a stake being driven in the ground by an agent to protect the interest of the person that owns that home. And I'll tell you why. He actually has a legal obligation to protect that seller. Now notice, side note, I said legal obligation. What's on the screen is fiduciary duty. Probably while I was talking, she was reading. That's how most people behave, right? And she got to fiduciary duty, and about 90% of people have no clue what that means. The people that know are us and brokers, stockbrokers, right? Financial planners. They have fiduciaries, right? So what I said was, he has a legal obligation. She's reading fiduciary duty and going, oh, that's what that means. I just made her feel smarter without having to embarrass her and impressed her with my knowledge, right? So he's got a legal obligation. What that means is he's going to try and sell it for the most amount of money with the least amount of repairs. And I'm deliberately using my hands to illustrate this, right? I want to be dramatic for emphasis, right? Then there's buyer agency. That's what I do. I represent buyers like you, and I have a legal obligation to protect your interests. So my job is to get it for the least amount of money, but with the most amount of repairs, right? But here's the cool part. And a lot of people don't realize this. When a seller puts a home on the market, he actually sets aside a pool of money to pay for both the buyer's representative and the seller's representative. And this has to be one of the few instances where an adversary in a negotiation would actually pay for his opponent to have professional representation. Isn't that kind of crazy? But that ends up allowing you to have free professional representation when you go into a negotiation. So let me ask you, would you rather have free professional representation like that, where someone else pays for it? Or would you rather go it alone?
Oh, free sounds cool. Wonderful.
Right? And I say, I lowered my head, did you notice that? I softened my voice. I said it a little bit, I drug it out. Or you want to go it alone, right? I didn't go that far, but I pivoted and I said it differently for emphasis. I want her to have an image of vultures flying around her head, out in the desert, being alone, right? 95% of people, actually, I can't remember the last time someone didn't say, yeah, free representation, that sounds pretty good. I'm good with that. When they say it, awesome, I'm excited to be working with you.
Great.
In her mind, she just hired me. In my mind, I am now statistically more likely to get her to sign, right? Close the laptop. This presentation has, oh, come on,
It's not a screen in case you thought it was.
24, really? I'm sorry. Supposed to, that, this, do that. PowerPoint has hijacked me. That's pissing me off. We'll make Blake edit this.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to interrupt.
No, I'm glad.
I pointed once just to see if you'd look.
Yeah, thank you. And if it happens again, which it probably will, please don't be shy. So I had that conversation with this in front of the prospect. They said yes, we shook hands, I closed my laptop. I'm done with the presentation. Even though there's 24 slides in this presentation, I'm on slide 2, and I am not going to show slide 3. Bye-bye, presentation, right? That should be your goal. You don't need those other things. The other slides are there if they don't understand the benefits. You can go on to elaborate on what buyers, brokers do and listing brokers don't do to then ask for the close. But I ask for the close right here. And go it alone is a catchphrase that if you don't use it, you will not pass. You will not receive company appointments. Sorry. Okay? So I've closed the laptop. Now I'm segueing to the folder. That's awesome, Jay. I'm excited to be working with you. Handshake. What I'd like to do now is show you a resource kit that I've brought for you. This is something that you're going to get to take home with you, but I just want to show you what's in it, okay?
Right.
Now, I am deliberately going to keep it in my possession. And when I'm done going through with it, I'm actually going to put it over here. I'm not going to hand it to her. Because what happens if I hand it to her? She starts reading. Yeah, that's normal human behavior. That's not my goal. My goal is to get her to sign. So I want to keep that distraction away. But I have to show it to her to do the selfless thing that I'm about to show you, all right? You always start with the right side of the folder first, and you finish with the left side, all right? When I go through the right side, I go from front to back. When I go through the right side, sorry, the left side, did I say? Anyway. When I go through this side, I go from front to back. When I go through this side, the left side, I go from back to front, all right? So here's how we do it. So Jay, what I'm going to give you in this resource is there's a better description, a more thorough description of our VIP buyer system, all right? I also have a blank purchase and sale agreement, all right? This is in here because a lot of people have never read one. And I don't want the first occasion that you have to actually read it to be in an environment where we are urgently putting an offer together because it's very competitive right now in the marketplace. I'd much rather have you have the opportunity to read it now and write on it and highlight it and ask me questions and just go through it. Does that make sense?
That would be very helpful.
Now, in an offer, any offer, there's 3 components that I want to make sure you're aware of. The first of which is this purchase and sale agreement. Now, I'm going to write this agreement in a way that protects your interest at all times, all right? I'm going to put parachute points in here so that we can do due diligence and get out of it if we want to. And you're going to always know where you are in the process, where your contingencies are, your parachute points, and when and if you're putting your earnest money at risk. Are you familiar with earnest money?
Well, I've used it a few times.
Okay, you've bought houses before, perfect. So you know that's just a deposit, right? But we're going to demonstrate a good faith interest in earnest to the seller that, hey man, we're serious. This offer is legit. We really want to buy this house. And we do that by putting a deposit in that tends to be between 1% and 3%. In this marketplace, that's pretty typical. So let me ask you, if we found the right house and you had to put an earnest money down, do you have funds that are liquid right now? I'm not asking how much or whether she's comfortable with it. I'm asking about liquidity because if they're in stocks, I want her to know that it takes time to liquidate stocks. It takes 3 days to settle the sale of equities, stocks, right? If it's in an IRA or something else, we want to talk about that now so that she can go figure it out, right? If she gives me any response other than, yep, it's liquid, I may say something to the effect of, well, make sure you just call your broker so you know how much time is needed to get it liquid. Does that make sense? Not hard, it's not intrusive. We just want to have the conversation now so she makes that phone call if she needs to, all right? The third thing that you need is pre-approval, right? Now remember, I asked once before when I was doing the nice to have and requirements thing, and she told me her brother-in-law pre-approved her and he works for Wells Fargo. And I go, now I know you're pre-approved with your brother-in-law, that's awesome, hopefully he's giving you the family deal. This is Adrian, he's one of our preferred lenders. The only reason he's in here is we like to have our preferred lenders validate that you're getting the best possible terms and you're in a win-win situation, right? Because I certainly don't want to make Thanksgiving dinner uncomfortable with your brother-in-law, but use Adrian to make sure that you're getting the best possible rates and terms. Sometimes big banks like Wells Fargo don't have all the products that mortgage bankers do, and so you can use him to validate. You can't lose. You're either going to get better terms or you're going to find out that you're already getting the best terms. Does that make sense?
That sounds really helpful too.
It worked, right? I've now inserted Adrian. If she said something more like, I could never betray my brother-in-law, I let it go. Hey, it's no problem at all. I can work with any lender. I have worked with every lender. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about Adrian. I can even pull that out and throw it away if I want. I probably wouldn't, because I'm hoping having it in there might make her think twice, right? That's the second time I've brought it up, and usually by this point, I have either convinced or I've abandoned, right? But I have a third occasion, I'm going to bring it up one last time, depending on how they respond to the first two. Make sense? All right, so I've gone through the three parts of the purchase and sale. This other side, these are more reference tools for you, and I'm just going to go through them. The first one is the law of agency. That conversation we just had about listing brokers and buyer's brokers, I never say selling brokers because that's confusing, right? But that law actually requires that I give you a copy of this law. So that's why it's in here. If you're ever having a hard time falling asleep, read that bad boy. That'll put you to sleep right away. Right? The next thing is an easy guide to home buying. You've bought and sold homes before, you mentioned that. This will probably be boring to you, but you might find it interesting. Your credit score and how to improve it. Every person I've ever helped, no matter how high their score was, had room to make it higher. This just gives you some ideas if you want to make it go higher. That's it. I don't even give them the impression that I know what their score is or I care what their score is. Everybody wants their score to go up, so I just key on that. This is a glossary of terms. Remember, from the requirements of nice to have conversation, I learned about her employment, probably, right? You moved up here to work for Amazon. I know you have a million terms that I would never know what they mean. Real estate has a little bit of that too, not nearly as much. My commitment to you though is I'll never use words that you don't understand. But if I do, just ask me and I'll make sure to define them for you. This is just a glossary of terms to help you get ahead of them. This next sheet is to help you when you go around town and you go to open houses. Now that we're working together, you can go into any open house you want. Just know that there's agents in there that are going to try and work with you. And all you have to do is let them know you're working with me. That's it. This last one, and I unfold the last one both pages at once, even though they're not stapled. This is my perfect purchase guarantee. What this says is that if you're unhappy with the home we find you for any reason, I'll sell it for you for free.
Wow.
Yeah, wildly unique. Think of this, right? Let's say we found the perfect house and I might drop a couple of the criteria that you gave me in the earlier conversation, right? We found the perfect house, it's 3,000 square feet, it's got the gourmet kitchen you're looking for, and a month after closing, a rock band moves in next door. Now the perfect house is no longer perfect, right? We would come in, I would sell that home for you for free and help you buy the next one. The conditions aren't even very lengthy. We even use an oversized font on this page because there isn't a lot to it. All it says is that we'll sell that one for free as long as you use us to buy the next one. Does that sound fair?
That seems really fair.
Does that sound fair is an empowering sentence, right? Because people don't want to be unfair inherently, right? So now I've gone through the folder in its entirety. I'm actually going to move it to this side of the table, the desk, the chair, wherever we are. And I'm going to give this to you when we leave. Let me just go through these last few things first. The first one is our cancellation guarantee. What this says is that you can fire me at any time, but please don't fire me. This is how I make a living, right? What I have found though is sometimes there's things that you just don't appreciate how they're going. Let me know. If they're about me, I might not even realize I'm doing something that's upsetting to you. I'll fix it right away. But I want you to know that you have the power to fire me at any time, because that forces me to work hard to earn your business every day and every day after tomorrow, right? I think that's the way it should be, right? I should work hard to earn your business. If I don't, you should fire me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to initial it right here. I'm going to ask you to initial it. What did I do just then?
Got her used to signing
Nice.
stuff.
Got the pen in her hand, right? Got her in the habit of signing. Then I'm going to make a joke about it so she doesn't go, oh, what did I just do? I'm going to take this. You're not going to need this. So I'm going to put it in your folder, but I'm going to put it way in the back because you're not going to need this. But if you do, it's in there, right? And I make a joke about it, and I do, and I put it in the back. So that's in there. This next thing I call our 12 promises, right? For the video, this is the VIP buyer addendum. Let me put it on the screen. All right, the VIP buyer addendum. I call it our 12 promises. So the next thing, Jay, is our 12 promises. These are the commitments and guarantees that I'm going to make to you in this process that we go through to help you find that perfect home. So I just want to go through and tell you what they are. And then I actually recite them. I don't read them line for line, but I paraphrase, right? I'm going to assist you in sourcing the best financing. This is opportunity number 3 to plug my preferred lender. At this point, I already know that she's 100% committed to somebody, and I go, you got that handled with your brother-in-law, right? Now she knows that she doesn't have to fight with me over which lender to use. But if it's anything short of undying loyalty to her brother-in-law, I'm going to go, we're going to help you find the best financing, and in this instance, it's probably going to be through your brother-in-law, but you're going to use Adrian to drive your brother-in-law cheaper if you can. Hopefully that works out well for you, right? So I've now just reinforced that benefit. Provide you regular updates from our VIP buyer profiling service. Those are the off-market, pre-market homes that we were talking about. Arrange private showings of any property that you want, right? Including the off-market stuff. We'll get you inside so you can determine if it's the right house for you. When we find a property that meets your needs, then we're actually going to have an offer strategy session and talk about what the offer needs to look like in order for us to win. And that's a really important conversation in this climate, right? Once we've done that, I'll actually write up the offer the way we discussed and present the offer and negotiate fiercely on your behalf to help you win, right? We also will recommend extremely competent affiliates. I'm now on number 7 if you're following along, right? That's inspectors and plumbers and roofers and anybody you might need. We have a whole database of providers that we have vetted and have helped other clients of ours that do a good job. Number 8, will be available to answer any questions. You can get me by text, you can get me by phone, email, whatever works best for you. Text works best for me because it's more instantaneous, but it's up to you. However you'd like to communicate, I will communicate. And the best part is you're never under any obligation to do anything. If we don't find the perfect house, then you shouldn't do anything, right? These last 3 bonuses I think are probably the most powerful ones. The first one is I'm actually going to give you a 1-year home warranty at the closing table. Think about like, let's say you went to Costco and you bought a blender. Took it home, you plugged it in, and it didn't work. What are you going to do?
Return it to Costco.
That's right, and they'll give you a new one, right? What if we bought a house, it's the perfect house, but then on the first cold night you turned on the furnace and it didn't start up? What are you going to do then?
Boy, I would sure get nervous.
And cold, right?
And cold.
See, in this warranty, you actually can get the furnace replaced for about the price of a copay, like at the dentist. And that's true for the whole first year. So the furnace could go out on the day after closing or 364 days later, and you'd still get a free furnace to replace it. We actually have clients that, we give you the first year, but we have clients that'll renew it and keep it going because it's a really good tool. The second bonus is our perfect purchase guarantee. We already talked about the rock band. We already know about that one. And the last one is a cancellation guarantee. So these are our 12 promises. This bottom section down here talks about how we get paid. And one thing I just want to make sure you understand, and we kind of figured out as a firm a long time ago, is that buyers really never know what the broker that represents them is getting paid until the very end at closing. And we didn't think that was right, because there's numerous times during the process where you would like to get advice, and you'd like to think that that advice is objective. But agents are influenced by commissions. And so we didn't think that was right. We set out to figure out a way to fix that, right? So what we landed on is we just made our commission a fixed number, so it didn't matter what the seller was offering. So our commission is 4% plus $5.95, paid by the seller. And if the seller is offering more than that, you get the difference. And if he's offering less than that, all this says is that you would give me the opportunity to at least try and negotiate that up. But if it doesn't work, if I'm not able to do that, I'll take what they're offering, because I would never want my commission to stand in the way of you getting the perfect house. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, I'm glad, me too. All right? This is a really important segue, because if you think about an agency agreement, there's a reason 98% of brokers don't use it. Do you know what that reason is? They know that the average consumer views this as a pair of handcuffs. And they don't want to put the consumer in a position to say, are you crazy? I'm not signing that. Because then what do? You have to recant, or you have to walk away. So they don't even ask. And if you talk to brokers, they'll lie to you. They'll say things like, oh, I don't need that. My clients are loyal to me. I don't need an agency agreement because they see the value. That's all BS, because they're too chicken to ask for it, right? The reason we get it on 100% of the, at least I get on 100% of the buyers I work with, is because I don't portray it as handcuffs. Or at least I don't portray it as handcuffs on Jay. I portray it as handcuffs on me. Here's how I do that, right? So she just said, I like that about this. And then I say, okay, this last piece is the agreement that holds me accountable to these 12 promises. So this is how you make sure that I do what I say I'm going to do. And that is done by this reference on the second page. See right here where it says Hometown Advisor VIP Buyer Addendum attached. Let me put it on the screen. So I'm drawing her attention to these words in paragraph 12. So you see how that says Hometown VIP Buyer Addendum attached? It's that reference that now makes this part of the agreement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of things on this, and then I'm going to ask you to review it, and if you have any questions, I'll answer them, and then I'll ask you to sign it. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Right? Sound good is a really subtle way to get them now thinking, oh, yep, I'm going to be signing this thing. Right? So I start back, after I've shown them the reference on page 2, I go back to page 1, and with my pen, I actually circle the 365 and the 4% plus 595, and then I underline paid by the seller, right? So it goes like this. So Jay, I'm going to show you a couple things that are on here, then I'm going to ask you to read it. If everything looks good, I'll have you sign it. The first one is 365. So we make this last for a year, not because I think it's going to take us a year, but I just don't want this agreement expiring to become a stress for us while we're trying to write an offer to buy a house, right? Plus, you can fire me at any time, so we could make this for 10 years. It wouldn't really matter. You can fire me tomorrow. Make sense? The second one I wanted to draw your attention to is our compensation is outlined right down here where it says 4% plus 595, and I want you to realize it says also paid by the seller. So that's how we use an MLS sort of templated form to drive the agenda or the service that we're going to deliver by adding this as an attachment and spelling out our compensation right there. So why don't you go ahead and take a look. If you have any questions, I want you to ask me, and if you don't, we'll go ahead and fill it out and sign it. While you're doing that, if I hadn't knocked my phone on the floor, I would pull it out of my pocket and say, while you're doing that, I'm going to start looking at opportunities for us to go look at some houses, all right? And then I'm I mean, I could be looking at Facebook. All I'm doing is seeing how she's reacting and waiting for her to sign, all right? Now, the consumer, the prospect, they fall in one of three categories every time. The first category decided they were going to sign a long time ago, and they start signing immediately. They don't even read it, and they hand it back to you. The second group, and this is probably the most common group, they never want people to think that they sign anything without reading it, so they pretend to read it, spend as much time on it as they figure they would need to actually read it, and then they sign it, right? That's about 80% of the total people fall in those first two categories. The third group are some version of didn't intend to sign at all, right? Or at least have some objection. And this is the group where you're going to develop skills and get really good at handling objections, right? The art of persuasion. So usually the objections come along the lines of, I don't sign anything without my wife here, right? Well, we eliminate that a majority of time because we won't book an appointment with just one spouse. We book it with both spouses every time. Sometimes the second spouse doesn't show up, and in that instance, that may happen, right? That may be brought to your attention. Some people say, oh, I've heard this one before, where they go, I never sign anything without sleeping on it, right? What's another good one? Those are the biggies, right? The third group would be somebody who reads it and has questions, right? That's what I really want. So if they say, I don't sign anything without sleeping on it, I'll laugh and go, I understand. What I'd love for you to do, though, is read it, because if you have questions, I would rather you have those questions right now in front of me so I can answer them for you. And I make them read it, right? And so they'll read it, or they'll skim it, or they'll say whatever, right? I'm going to rebut every objection in an effort to get him or her to sign. And if they won't sign, I'm taking it back. You don't leave these with anybody, signed or unsigned, right? If they sign, you're not leaving it because you're taking it back to the office. We'll scan it to them so they have a copy, but they're not taking it home to sleep on it. What's written on this is proprietary, and you don't want them to take that and share it with somebody. So when they say, I got to sleep on it, I'll say, well, you think about whether this service suits you, and let me know what you decide. Right? If he doesn't want to sign to work with me, I have to decide whether I want to work with them. Now, can you sell a house to somebody without an agency agreement? Yeah. All of you have done it, right? Or most of you. And if you haven't, you will. But you want to use this to drive a loyalty in you. Because as much as we've all sold houses without it, we've also had buyers betray us, right? And if you haven't, you just haven't been doing this long enough, because it will happen. This decreases the likelihood of that betrayal, okay? So your mission should always be to get this signed, plain and simple, right? So she signs. I fill in the address, email, and phone number that's on the bottom of page 2. And I say, great, this is awesome, Jay. Let me just fill in the address. So when we go and do an offer, a purchase and sale agreement, I want to have this information already in hand. So what's your mailing address? Boom, get the address. What's a good cell number for you? What's a good email address, right? Fill those in. Tell her, I am going to scan these to you so you have copies for yourself. Now, let's talk about going to look at houses. Your criteria will drive a pretty good volume of houses, so I'm excited to work with you. There's one thing I found, though, is when you look at more than 6 or 7, they start to blend together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a group of homes. Your homework is going to be to go through those and decide which are the top 4 or 5 that you'd like to go see. And then we're going to go see those, all right? When we do that, that'll probably take us 2 or 3 hours. So is that easiest for you if we do it on a weekend or you know, this time of year, evenings are brutal because it's dark, right? So steer people to the weekends. I set up my weekends with 4 blocks of showing windows, morning and afternoon each day, and I steer people to one of those, right? We schedule the appointment, I shake her hand again, right? We're done. If there's ever a concern about lending, I'll say, I'm gonna have Adrian call you this afternoon. Please connect with him before we go out on Saturday because we wanna make sure everything's in order, right? You use the showing appointment as leverage to get someone to take action on the financing because that's a deadline. We wanna have that in order in case we find the perfect house, right? If we wanna write an offer, we gotta make sure we got everything in order. All right, so let me just recap quickly, and then I will kick you all loose. It's working. All right. So how do you get cleared for appointments? Step 1, you got to practice, right? That means if you're going to present to me, you should have already presented to someone in the office at least 3 times to practice. If I realize that I'm the first time you've given the presentation, we'll stop when I realize it and I'll send you away. We will not finish because I'm not going to waste my time or yours, okay? Be certain that you touch on the most important parts, right? Promote your preferred lender, and then all of these phrases, right? This grid that you see on the screen is my checkout document for people that come in and give the presentation. And I fill in these numbers. Did they go in order? Did they cover these agreements in order? Did they make sure to use the word legal obligation when the words fiduciary duty are on the screen? Did they say, think of the listing sign like a stake in the ground? Did they talk about the seller's pool of money? Do you want to go it alone, right? If you miss any of these, I won't pass you. That's it, right? Got to make sure you explain the 3 parts of the offer when you're in the folder, right? These are during the slides. These are during the folder. These are during the agreements at the end. So I covered all of these when Jay and I were role playing. You need to make sure you do it with every one of your prospects. And yes, I can give you a copy of the checkout doc so you know and you can practice it.